Hey guys, welcome into another edition of the CFB PrizePicks Show. I am your host, Jordan Vanek. You can follow me on Twitter, Jordan Vanek DFS. Be sure to subscribe and like to the show. That means a lot to us. If you don't know, PrizePicks, well, basically the site you can go and pick any 5-player over/under on the props. And if you hit all 5, you can 10x your money. And we have a promo with Awesemo where if you use code Awesemo, we'll match up to $100 on your first deposit. Last week, me and my co-host Matt Gajewski were able to turn someone's $200 into $2,000 on a pick 5 that they listened into the show and won. So hopefully you guys can get it going and take down something like that. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Really excited for this weekend's slate of games. And there's a couple of angles I really like on PrizePicks, so I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, no, it's nice to get into conference play where, these teams actually start, you can see them matching up because the first few weeks they're playing DeQuee State and, Bethune-Cookman, these schools that are just complete unknowns. But who is the first pick that you think you could take advantage of this week?
Yeah, I'm going to go to a team that we've been shorting a little bit here on the show in Wisconsin and take a look at their run game with Chez Mellusi. He's sitting at 79.5 rushing yards, which is extremely low for a player on Wisconsin. We know they're going to be very slow, methodical, and run heavy. And with Mellusi, he's receiving a massive workload, and it's not being priced in right now. And again, Wisconsin's 1-2. They've had to play from behind against Notre Dame and Penn State. That's not typically what we see. And they are a 1.5-point favorite here against Michigan. So they are projected to play from ahead or at least in neutral game scripts. Mellusi has still carried the ball 31 times, 20 times, and 18 times. And in this past game, the only other running back that carried significantly was John Chenal, who's a fullback. He had 3 carries, Isaac Garendo 4. Otherwise, nobody else touched the ball more than once. So it's been Chez Mellusi's backfield all to himself. Michigan hasn't played anybody of note yet, so I don't want to look into any of their defensive numbers. I think the matchup is neutral at best. And then with Mellusi, if he's going to receive that kind of workload, he's just going to backdoor his way into massive rushing seasons. He should be closer to 100 yards in this prop, and he's sitting at 79.5.
Yeah, Wisconsin's one of those teams that forever has just ran the ball repeatedly over and over again. Do you have any concerns with Graham Mertz and throwing it to the other team like you did in that fourth quarter to get Notre Dame up some 41 points, I believe? They threw 3 pick sixes maybe in a row.
I mean, and a lot of that came in the fourth quarter too. So like Mellusi, even if they're down a little bit, he's still going to get his workload, which I think is fine. And based on what Vegas and bookmakers are saying, this should be a close game. So I'm expecting a heavy workload from him.
Yeah, and I mean, going into maybe more of a split of the backfield, I have Tiyon Evans over 65.5 rushing yards this week. The reason is because this Missouri run defense just has been awful this year. Their average giving up 271 yards on the ground, 6.2 yards per carry, while Tennessee's rushing attack is averaging 219 yards on the ground. With both of their quarterbacks banged up, I'm not sure they're going to be taking so much of the rushing yards. I think Jabari Small and Tiyon Evans will kind of dominate the carries. And Tiyon Evans is one of those guys that he can break a 50-yard touchdown. His speed is through the charts. This spread right now is 2.5 and 66 point over under. Missouri is the favorite in the game, but I think Tiyon Evans can easily hit this over 65 rushing yards based upon what we've seen from this Missouri run defense. How do you think about this?
He projects right at 63 yards for me, so it's kind of a neutral bet. And that's because he's just going to split time with Jabari Smalls. But I think if you're approaching this thinking that Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton aren't healthy, at least 100%, and that's not something we'll know. There was a quote from their coach that said Hendon Hooker's approaching 100%, indicating that at least early in the week he wasn't. And if that's the case in the angle you're taking, then I think it's a much better bet. But for now, it's a pretty neutral one just based on the median projections.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that like I just see Tennessee's offense with Heupel being I was recruiter for them while Heupel's over at UCF. They're going to be able to get their way on the ground, and Tiyon is just someone that I project to take one of those big carries because of just how fast he is. But you have one of my favorite over-unders on the week because I just can't believe it's this low. Leddie Brown. How are you approaching this one with, his over-under at 84.5 right now?
Yeah, we're still really early in the year, and I think there's some buy low situations. The Wisconsin one that we just brought up, that's certainly one of them. But this West Virginia team as well, they're sitting at 2-2, some really tough losses. They played Oklahoma really close. They played Maryland close, a Maryland team that I think we both like a little bit more than consensus. And now they're playing Texas Tech as a 7-point favorite. Texas Tech's defense has been giving at times to opposing rushing attacks. And Leddie's another one of these players that just receives all of the work, and it's not even close. In their last game, the only other player that had a carry was Sam James, and he doesn't even play running back. So, I mean, Leddie Brown is literally handling every single carry. And that was the case against Maryland, too, in their week 1 game. Leddie Brown had every single carry, not another back even touched the ball. So if we're projecting this to stay close, or at least West Virginia win, which that's what bookmakers Vegas project as well, Leddie's going to have a massive workload. And again, efficiency's been his problem. He's only averaging 80.3 rushing yards per game. But Texas Tech, they're a middling run defense. I think they should see a spike in efficiency here against a worse opponent.
Yeah, last week was Texas Tech's first real game against an opponent that can run the football, and Bijan Robinson is more talented than Leddie Brown. But Leddie Brown, like last year, was able to get over 20 carries on 6 different occasions. Hasn't been able to do so this year, but that's just because of the game scripts that they've been playing, where their wins have been, pretty big wins, while their losses have just been tough. And one of the bets that I had in my article as well, Leddie Brown is just easily going to hit that over for me. I think he's going to get north of 20 carries, and he just got to be somewhat decent in the running game for him to hit that over on 84.5. I could see that one rising. But on the other side, I didn't have this originally, but I saw that, on the sheet that you brought it up with SaRodorick Thompson. His over in rushing yards is something that I completely agree with on the other side of the ball now that I look more into it, because he dealt with injury early in the year. And this week they're going to be playing with their backup quarterback. So I think they're going to be running the ball more with this Texas Tech offense. And last year against West Virginia, on only 8 carries, he was able to get 68 rushing yards. If he's going to be the main back in the backfield, he's going to kill this over under, in my opinion, if he can get upwards of 15 to 16 touches. What are your approach to it?
We've seen Texas Tech have no issues running the ball when they're behind. Even last week, SaRodorick Thompson to 16 carries. You like to see him immediately come back after the injury and work as the feature back. And then no Taj Brooks is going to work in his favor again. Taj Brooks has really been the only other back that has siphoned off a meaningful workload. Last week, Xavier White did have 8 carries, but it was pretty clearly SaRodorick Thompson working ahead of him. So as you noted, I just think this is mispriced based on workload. It seems that PrizePicks is kind of trying to price in a timeshare when we really haven't seen that with SaRodorick Thompson in his career. At least late in the year last year, he was handling a full workload. Since he's come back from the injury with Taj Brooks also out, he's been handling a full workload. I think you can get there just based on a mispriced prop.
Yeah, and I can see that the Leddie Brown prop already has gone up to 88.5. It's one of those things that even then I still am taking the over on it. But again, you got to get on these PrizePick lines as we are saying them, because they will literally be changing as the show goes on. I feel like they're watching us, but who knows at this point?
I'm double checking what I have Leddie at, because he stood out as one of the best values to me, and I think he projects for 94 on the back end for me, so I would still hit 88 there.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of my favorite players. He actually helped me take down the big contest thanks to you, because he came in at pretty low ownership and he dropped 34. But Leddie Brown is one of the better running backs in the country. I'm still taking the over on 88. If it gets upwards of 94, I'll probably lay off.
Chez is right around there too. So like you got a lot of value on Chez. For me, I think he's around 95. These are just mispriced.
Yeah. And speaking of like college football projections, you can join Awesemo Plus for $29.95 for the week and get access to everything. But if you just want the college football stuff for $14.95 weekly, you can get Matt's projections. They're phenomenal. Last week, Josh Corbin, who came in at like sub 5%, Matt had him projected as the 4th best running back in this week, and Josh Corbin put up 30 points against the Louisville run defense. And be sure to just tune into the shows that they have, the YouTube channel with the odds and fantasy. And just this past day, we had a guy winning $560K on the showdown slate. It's all money over here at PrizePicks. You can take advantage of a multitude of ways. Matt, your projections again have just been phenomenal this year. And as we learn more about these teams, it's going to be easier to project unless, injuries come about. But it's just been phenomenal. I think everybody should be tuning in. And Matt, let's get into some of the quarterbacks this week. Tanner McKee, I am not a guy that I expected to see on the sheet, but someone that I've seen pop up in my redraft league, and someone started him last week. The Stanford quarterback, how are you feeling about his over under?
This is a situation where I think they're using season long stats for Tanner McKee, and they're not factoring in that he was in a timeshare to begin the year. And he's since won the job. And every single game he's played this year, he's been over his listed prop. And some a little closer than others. He hasn't been fantastic, but he's been over 213 passing yards in each of his 3 starts, culminating in his most recent start where he actually played a really good game. He had 293 yards against a strong UCLA defense. And Stanford, another part of the issue with this prop, at least from a bookmaking perspective, Stanford's plays per game have been super low this year. They're right around 55. The league average for your reference is near 70, give or take, based on the year. And Stanford is down about 15 plays per game from what we saw last year. They don't have any major changes on their coaching staff. The player personnel is largely the same. I think you can expect a lot of positive regression with Tanner McKee, and he's already exceeding some of these passing numbers with really low play volume and low efficiency. Not to mention the way you beat Oregon's through the air. They're allowing over 300 passing yards per game. I wouldn't look too much into that. They played Ohio State, and Oregon was a bit of a shootout. But still, even just based on regression in play volume and the way Tanner McKee's playing, this is flat out too low. It would have to be the worst game of his career for him not to hit the over here.
Yeah, and I mean, Oregon's defense last week against Arizona, who's not exactly the most threatening passing attack with Jordan McLeod, was able to, get over, or I forgot how many passing yards he had, but I played him in DFS at 5K, and he was able to do well on the ground and through the air. And even watching the game, you can just see the fact that Tibbs, the defensive end for Oregon, has been so limited. They don't have a significant pass rush, and on top of it, their coverage has just been pretty weak. I know the Ohio State passing attack is just much better than the average, but 211 passing yards for someone that, again, has just started getting the ball rolling, and if they start running more plays, that's just so low, and you can expect them to be playing from behind in this one.
It's like what we did last week with Casey Thompson. We're just like, Casey Thompson's not priced correctly based on a starting quarterback. If he plays the whole game, he's going to hit the over.
Yeah, especially in that point total last week. And speaking of Casey Thompson, we're hitting it again this week with the over on 238 passing yards. I hope that one didn't change as we are, doing the show. But TCU is the matchup they have this week. It's a 65.5 over under. Texas is the favorite. And against this TCU passing defense, like overall, they've been pretty good this year, but they've also played 2 just non-existent opponents in Division One. Against Cal and SMU, against Cal, they gave up over 300 yards in the air. And then against SMU, who's a better passing attack, on only 28 attempts, Tanner Matakai still threw for 245. They were just having their way on the running game, which I think will be the main focus point for his TCU defense trying to stop Bijan, allowing Thompson to just shred them through the air. How are you feeling about it?
I like this one as well. Again, Casey Thompson's still not priced correctly based on like a Texas quarterback. He projects pretty easily for 264 yards for me, and that's just with middling efficiency overall. TCU and Texas both play fairly up-tempo. Again, we're still dealing with really small sample sizes for both of these teams. There still should be some regression towards last year's play volume for both these teams. TCU will be pass-heavy in situations, and as the underdog here, I don't think they're going to have any alternative but to be somewhat pass heavy, which is going to help Texas overall with their play volume. And Texas has been sensitive as well to game script. So I think the close game does help here. Overall, on the TCU side, they've been dealing with a lot of injuries on defense. They've been down their best corner, and their coach refused to update his status this week. So I'm not sure if we're going to see him. They've been down their best edge rusher. Again, the coach wouldn't update Kari Coleman or Noah Daniels. So we'll have to wait and see whether those guys play or not. But if one or both is out, I think that helps the Texas status as well.
Yeah, again, Texas with this, Sarkisian offense, I think the more starts that Thompson gets, the better that he's going to get into rhythm, and they're going to be able to open up passing more because Bijan Robinson just makes it so easy for for an offense to throw the ball because they're going to have to load people in the box. And if they don't, Bijan Robinson's going to be able to hit over 112 yards in his rushing prop every single week. And I think the way that you beat Texas defensively is by forcing them to throw. But Casey Thompson in his career has just been very efficient. I even thought about doing his pass touchdown prop this week because he just when he throws the ball, he throws touchdowns, even on like 20 attempts. It's ridiculous what he's been able to do. But again, this is the highlight matchup of the week, I think, is my Alabama Crimson Tide versus the Ole Miss Rebels. And the player that I am going towards for the prize picks is Jameson Williams, and getting that over on 3.5 receptions, because this game has an over under of 79 points. And Bama originally was 20-point favorites. That line's come down to 14.5. And personally, when the game is closer, Jameson Williams is running more routes. And in a game that has a 79-point over under, I think Bama's going to throw the ball 30 to 40 times, which will allow Jameson Williams, who runs second most routes on the team, to be able to get targeted 8 to 10 times and be able to easily hit this 3.5 over. He's been the best receiver so far for Alabama this year. McKee has not shown enough for me personally watching the games, and Jameson Williams, I think, is just a smash play at over for this low of receptions.
Yeah, this is an easy one for me. He projects for 4.8. I don't think you have to go much past the game environment overall. This is an 80-point total in some spots. It's going to be up-tempo, pass-heavy on both sides. Alabama, even with like the new team and their offensive line struggles, they still have been throwing the ball more than 50% of the time. They can't really block anybody on offense. They've struggled immensely in their offensive line. At least they've taken a step back. And I think that lends itself to quick hitting throws, which rather than take the receiving yardage prop, I'm with you. I think I would prefer just to get the receptions here. 4.8 receptions, the projection. 3.5 is where it's listed. It's an easy over for me.
Yeah, I mean, Williams has he's been phenomenal this year for Alabama, and like Ole Miss on their defensive side of the ball, they've actually been pretty surprising. I mean, I feel like they get a targeting penalty every single snap because they're just headhunting. I think they're going to be loading the box, blitzing as much as they can. And I think the way that you're going to try to beat Alabama is to force Bryce Young to beat you. Not that he can. I mean, this offensive line, again, has had struggles. I just expect that Alabama to have to air it out. And this point total is just so high for Alabama to just be able to do whatever they want offensively.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
But one of the under bets, which we know we never root for an under, but Matt, this is we're going back to that Tennessee game, I believe, is Velus Jones. I don't even know how to say his name. You have him under 47.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, Velus Jones, he's actually the leading target getter for Tennessee right now. And there's a lot of smoke to this. He only has 14 targets on the year. He only has 160 yards. This Tennessee offense has been really volatile. Both quarterbacks have been hurt at times. They already skew run heavy. And then with Velus Jones, he's not a starting receiver. He doesn't even play 50% of the snaps. You look at their first 4 games, Velus Jones running a route on 31% of dropbacks, 32, 35, and 43. That is partially because Jalen Hyatt was hurt, and now he's back. Hyatt in his first game back immediately returns and runs 70% of the routes. You have Cedric Tillman, Javonte Payton, and Jalen Hyatt working ahead of Velus Jones. Right now, I think the 14 targets he's received is more of an anomaly than anything. So you can look towards the under on Velus Jones, just knowing he's going to be on the field less than Javonte Payton, Cedric Tillman, and Jalen Hyatt. He's just not a starting receiver for this team.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was shocked to see his name because I honestly did not even know who he was. Like, I knew the Tennessee pass catchers were Tillman and Payton from what I thought, and Hyatt from week 1 being hurt. I looked back and saw that it's crazy that Velus Jones was even listed as a prop personally. Like, it's one of those easy ones to definitely hit the under for someone who's just not, or simply not on the field. And again, for prize picks, if you want, you could even pick just a 2-pick, where if you can do a flex play or a power play is if you get both right, you 3x your money on a 2-pick. And then you can do the flex play where it's just a 2x if you hit, or 0.5 if you lose. You don't have to lose all your money if you miss on one of the picks. Prize Picks has been phenomenal in that regard to me, where a correct 3 play will get you 5x or 1.5, but if you get all 4 right, you get a 10x. It's a phenomenal way to do some college football prop betting, especially here in Florida where books aren't legal. Well, Prize Picks is, and that's just one of those fantastic ways to win some money. Matt, have you been making a killing so far this year with Prize Picks?
It's been pretty good. I haven't been playing as much as I should, and I absolutely know that. I take these right before the video starts, and then I go on with the projections. It's just been a busy life, but overall trying to play as much as possible.
And someone in the comments, Skimmer93 has got prize picks for tonight's slate. I know you guys have a show later, but I believe your article is out for tonight's slate, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so definitely go check out that article. I believe the prize picks called football articles are free. And my article is there as well if you want to take a look at the Saturday slate. And let's get into some more of the, picks before we wrap this thing up. You've got KJ Jefferson at an over under of 163.5 passing yards. I know they're playing Georgia. I see that you like that prop, the over.
Yes, I do. It's like the Tanner McKee prop. Like, what would KJ Jefferson have to do to not hit this prop? And they're going based on season averages here. And I know that. And Georgia's level of competition's been up and down. Like UAB, they clearly didn't hit that prop. And then Vanderbilt, they only attempted like 9 passes in the entire game. I'm pretty sure Vanderbilt completed 5 passes in their entire game against Georgia. But you looked at Clemson, Uiagalelei eclipsed this. The South Carolina quarterbacks eclipsed this as a whole. That's because they had Doty get hurt in the game. But overall, like this, KJ Jefferson's the best quarterback that they faced this year. I know KJ Jefferson hasn't had like the best efficiency stats himself, but volume's going to be there if Georgia's winning in this game. And even if it's just easy throws underneath, like we're talking about a basement level prop here, 163 yards. Like the best college defenses allow more than that.
Oh yeah, I mean, and the one thing about this, Arkansas team is Treylon Burks is truly an NFL talent. Like he can get 90 yards against this Georgia defense by himself. And with this Arkansas play calling, like I love the way that they play offense. Like Texas A&M is a very good defense, and they were able to have their way on whatever approach they wanted through the air, through the ground. They were doing receiver passes. They're going to be able to scheme things up. I do worry about Georgia's speed being something that they're not used to. But again, 163 yards is just way too low. I feel like his line should be at 205. He did get a little banged up last week, but he did come back in the game and they ran him, which was something I didn't expect, but simply way too low of a prop. And any other props that really just stand out to you, Matt?
There's a few I think that are interesting, not quite as good of values as the one we talked about. Trevion Henderson for Ohio State. I want to fade his under 105.5. And that's kind of a scary fade. That's rushing yards we're talking about, of course. He's the Ohio State back. He only has one game where he's really been used as the bell cow, and allegedly like Master Teague was banged up in that spot. Typically, they've used him in a 3-way timeshare with Mayan Williams and Master Teague. So I'm just a little concerned with the workload of Henderson. There's always the chance that he breaks off a long run, but at the same time, I will usually side with these over-unders if the projections align. And here we're looking at the under. So that would be another one I would mention.
Yeah, Trayvon Henderson was the number 1 running back coming out of high school. But for this Ohio State team, they've just been up and down with how they utilize him. I wish they would just give him the ball, to be completely honest with you, because he's definitely super talented and just better than the running backs they have, but they have not done so thus far. And with Stroud returning possibly this weekend, they could just be throwing the ball more again, because that's what Ryan Day loves to do. He refuses to run the ball. That's just his MO. But again, if you guys haven't, download PrizePicks, use promo code Awesemo, get you $100 bonus. Subscribe, like to the show. It'd be fantastic for me. And coming up at like 6 p.m. Eastern, live before lock, Matt Gajewski and Ben will take you through the whole slate and give you guys some great bets. I've always tune into that show and try to make some DFS lineups. I don't usually love Friday slates, but we're starting to get some pretty good games, and this one at least doesn't have a Southern Utah on it. So that's the huge one. But appreciate you guys. Matt, do you have anything else you want to add to it?
No, thank you guys for all being here. Hope you're enjoying the work. I appreciate being here, so thank you.
Yeah, and sorry guys, 7 p.m. Eastern, not 6 p.m. That is my fault. I am learning the show times for this week. So thank you guys again, and have a good one.